Hi everybody, I'm Tara from Crooked Row, and today I actually cannot wait any longer. I have to start planting. I know it's only January and I live in zone 6, but I can't help it. I have to start planting. So let winter sowing begin. And so if you don't know what winter sowing is, you essentially take water jugs, milk jugs, anything that has like that same basic structure, and you cut them in, I want to say 1/4 and 3/4, kind of actually, I can't try to keep mine below the handle of the milk jug. And so about this much of it is where I put my soil. And so I use just normal potting soil. I know that there are people who use seed starting mix, and I would highly suggest not to. I did that a couple years ago, and I kept coming out to check on them, and I was watering them. But so seed starting mix doesn't really have very good, I think it's perlite and something else that they put in like potting soil and stuff, and it helps retain the moisture a little bit better. And so even though it's outside and it's gonna get moisture, I mean, sometimes we have dry winters, and so we don't always get the moisture that we want, and so it causes you to come out and water. But even with that watering that I did 2 years ago, when we pulled those plants out, it was like a brick. It was sitting in a brick. And so everything sprouted in them, and they seemed to do good at first, but at some point it was just too dry. And so I personally feel like potting mix really does well, because it does have other things in it to hold in moisture, because that's kind of the point of potting mix. So I fill it with potting mix, I put in my seeds, I go ahead and I water them in. I water my seeds in just to make sure that seed coat, you know, is getting soft from the water. And then I will tape it closed. I label, because you will forget. Even if you only have 3 plants, you're gonna forget, so label it. There are some things that you do need. Let's kind of go over what you need and a little bit of tips and tricks. I've done this for about, I want to say 5 years now, and I've had a lot of mistakes that I have made, especially in zone 6. You might deal with other things more northern, and you might deal with other things more southern, but in zone 6, I can promise you there are things that you're going to come across. So let's kind of get started on what we're going to do and why we're doing it, and then we'll actually get into the project itself. Let's get started. So I'm an organic grower, and I sort of say that loosely. Clearly, we're not certified or anything like that. But when I can get it, I get organic. So I love to use espoma, but espoma in my area is extremely hard to run across sometimes. But especially their potting mix and their seed starting mix, I can almost never get it. So I've tried different organic mixes. I really hate anything from Burpee. Their mixes are so woody and so cheap, and I just really don't like them. This is, let me see, called Garden Kellogg Organics, or Kellogg Garden Organics. I'm not sure how they say that. It does say locally made here. It has worked wonderful for us, and I do add things, but not during winter sowing, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. So get whatever you can get. If you are organic and you can't find organic, and maybe even there was one year we couldn't even get peat. So if you can't get peat moss and you're just running up against all of these issues, just do whatever you have to do, and let's not put that much thought into it where maybe it causes you not to garden. So the whole point is that we're creating food for our family. So as you can see, this has lasted. It not only lasted last winter, and then I kept these out, especially for my foxglove, because I didn't plant that until later in the season. So this stayed out in the sun, the rain, the snow, everything we got last winter, last summer. And then in the fall time, you know, we collected all of these and put them in a garbage bag and brought them in. And so they have sat here since definitely all fall. And look, that is still there. So what is my secret? My secret is a paint pen. Now, you have to let this dry after you write it. Like, you can't just handle it right away like you can a Sharpie. But look how worth it that is. I have watched people who have gardened for years struggle with garden markers and all of this stuff. You cannot beat a paint pen. And this is white because last year I had yellow tape, but they make it in every single color on earth. So I got mine from Tractor Supply, but I know they have them at Lowe's and Home Depot and all the big box stores. And I'm sure your local hardware store too. So paint pen for me is a necessity when it comes to winter sowing. Second is tape. You want to get duct tape, and the reason why is you need something that can seal it and withstand dropping temperatures, which that's the whole point of duct tape, is that it's going to be hot and it's going to be cold. And so duct tape works the best for this. I've seen other YouTubers use other tape. I've tried it on a couple of mine and they degrade so quickly. But duct tape doesn't. This one is white. Actually won't be using these on here. Actually, if I do use it, I'll put a silver duct tape just for the name where I'll use my paint. But I'm just waiting on my husband to bring me some normal silver duct tape at the moment. Okay, so then you also have your jugs, and you want to just make sure that your jugs, and so see where I have cut these? And so it's like right at that level. You know, so that we can do this. I'm working with one hand, sorry. So we can open it. There we go. Backwards like that. Because if you cut it somewhere else and it's open over here, you're not gonna have that handle. So you wanna make sure and leave that. Do you see how I have like 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches back here that is not cut? Now I do have ones that were accidentally cut and they still work. It just makes it a little more difficult. So, but this is the prime way to do it. If you are using jugs that are used, and I don't even mean, like none of these, I throw out ones that are molded or they look like maybe the plant had a disease. I throw those away. These, there was nothing wrong with these. So I'm not washing those, and whoever has an issue with it's gonna have to deal with that. So I typically try to use only ones that have water in them. I currently have one that I'm actually gonna show you how to do this process with. This is a milk container and it's dirty, and I did that on purpose. I mean, I could have washed it out right away, but I didn't, because I'm going to cut it open and then I'm going to go wash it and then I'm going to go use it. You just want to make sure that they have a sterile environment, and that's it. So it doesn't have to be picture perfect, but sterile is good. And milk, nasty milk, or even juice will definitely create mold. So that is not something we want on our seedlings. So I'm going to grab, you can utilize, to cut these, you can utilize scissors. For years I used scissors until my husband gave me his, I call them box cutting knives. I don't think they're called that. I think it's called an X-Acto knife or something. But that works a lot better and it's like a lot smoother. You have so much motion with the scissors that it kind of becomes a problem. So you can use scissors though. You can use scissors and you can use a knife. Now I feel like a knife is a little more dangerous than even an X-Acto knife. So I'd be careful with knives. And if you're doing it with kids, let them do it with scissors. And you use the X-Acto knife because it's much easier. So we have that. And again, you want holes in the bottom to make sure that there is drainage. And you always want to remove the cap, because we do want whatever precipitation is happening, we do want that inside of this, because remember, this is a little greenhouse. And so I have a huge greenhouse now that my precious son built for me. But I grow every single way there is to grow. And I think that this is one of the greatest inventions ever, because they are tiny little greenhouses. And who doesn't have milk and water jugs? I mean, everybody does. And so if you don't have those things, trust me, you have neighbors and relatives who want to get rid of it, because this is just, space in their garbage. Like my mom loves to give these to us. And so hers are water jugs though. And so I prefer to actually work with the water jugs because then I don't have to wash anything. So anyway, what do you need? You need jugs. You need water jugs. You need, or any kind of jug that you can utilize, preferably water. You need duct tape. You need a paint pen. You need something to cut the jugs with. I prefer a box cutter. And you're gonna need potting soil and some water and your seeds. And guys, I have not ordered my seeds yet. I am in the process of putting together my orders. And so these are all seeds from last year. So I'm actually getting a jump ahead of the game, and you all should get a jump ahead of the game. So I'm gonna start I'm actually gonna show you how to do it with this. I'm gonna cut it open and show you how this is actually done with just one, and then we'll get to seed planting. All right, here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna take off the cap, and right here is like the line that we wanna go around to come back around here. So, box cutter, poke in. Look how like fast that is. I promise you, scissors are not that quick. Boy, does this stink. Holy guacamole. Ugh. Okay, we've got that. Ew. Had to dump that. Ugh, clabbered milk, gross. Okay, I'm just gonna put 4 holes in the bottom for water to get out, or you'll drown your seeds. And now, let's go wash. First things first, let's wet this potting soil. Okay, I just filled this planter that I had, and I'm going to start filling these with soil. And this was outside, so it could be slightly frozen. I'm gonna need more than that actually. Okay, there we go. 1 down and 20 more to go. So let's get to it. Okay, gang, we got all that done. That was actually very simple. It's always so fulfilling to start planting things anyway. If you're a gardener, you know what I mean. If you love gardening, it's torture to go through the winter. It's a nice break, but it's torture. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna tape all of these with the duct tape. Well, because we're losing light, I have actually enlisted the help of Chris.
Hey.
So he's gonna help me. We're gonna put 2 hands to it. Before we lose light, I wanna show you where we're setting them. So we're gonna hurry up and try to get this done. Okay, well we are done. We have those. I wanted to go over a couple of things and see, let's just see how many points we can come across here. One, you are creating a tiny greenhouse. So whether you have a greenhouse like this or not isn't the point. Anyone can grow food. I keep saying this, and that's like the theme of our channel. Anyone can do this. And that's why I love winter sowing, because I mean, you could be in an apartment and this works perfect because you're creating a tiny greenhouse. So there's one. Two, make sure that you have proper materials so that you don't lose sight of what you have planted. So I am going to say that that is like my #1 suggestion, even though we're on suggestion 2, that is my #1 suggestion, is that you use a paint pen. Paint pens just work. And so if they don't work, let me know if you have something else that works. But here it works really well. The third thing is that we put them over, once they were taped and seeded and all that good stuff, we went ahead and we put them on the south side of the greenhouse. Now, a couple of reasons or things you need to think about. One, don't plant them in shade. That is the place that does not get shade. Two, we keep them out of the wind, because you really don't want these, unless it's something that's for stratification, you really don't want these freezing. So if you can help that, great. And remember, snow is an insulator. So if you're getting snow, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And a lot of times it will just melt into the top anyway. So snow is not necessarily bad. And I mean, if they're like, 24 inches deep in snow, that might be an issue. But I would love to hear from any northern gardeners who have been winter sowing for a while and have had that experience, because that would be good information to know. But we actually don't get that much snow here. I mean, last year we did get a blizzard, but it melted very quickly. I mean, I think that the snow stuck around very small time. But there are other considerations here. Some things are going to be according to what zone you're in. So all of that makes a difference too. We are in 6B, 6A or 6B, I think 6B. So I would say probably one of the biggest things with winter sowing is, what can you sow? And so, like, would I put tomatoes out? I mean, there are people who do, especially people who live further south. I don't do tomatoes in winter sowing. I should say I've never tried it. I did try some peppers last year. They never grew. And so I kind of have a system of what I like to do in my garden. And so I'm going to try to put a list up of things that can be winter sown. But here's some guiding lines to go by. Anything that is a perennial in your area, it can be winter sown, because you just have to kind of think the logic through. If I planted a perennial outside right now and it could make it through my winter, then why would this not work? It also, is it something that needs stratified? And stratified just means it needs a period of coldness. And so some plants need more than others, but most of the time, if it needs any stratification, you can winter sow. And is it hardy in your area? As we move closer to spring, you will be able to plant. The list grows. So right now we're in January. This list will be growing of what you can start. And just because you can start something in January doesn't mean you can't start it in February. So, and it depends on what you're doing it for. I would also highly recommend, especially to the northern growing, the northern gardeners, is start your onions now if you're doing them from seed, because they need plenty of time before you transplant them to the garden. So you want good sized plants before you transplant them. So, and they can definitely, every single year, we have a video that I'll link down below. Every single year, me and the kids come out when it's absolutely freezing, and we plant them in, like, we get salad through the winter. We get salad out of, we get our salad containers from our local store. And so we utilize those just like we're doing this. I mean, it becomes its own little greenhouse, and it sprouts when it's time. It always works. It's amazing. And in about a month from now, it's going to be time to start planting things like peas and stuff in our gardens. So I get very excited about the garden. So I know that, let's see. So whatever you are going to plant, make sure that in January, and sometimes February, just depending on how cold you get. So those considerations are they perennials in your area? Are some of them, like as we get into like the end of February, definitely the beginning of March, hardy annuals will also grow. And actually, I just planted some hardy annuals. So all your cool weather crops can grow this way. So I planted broccoli, I planted, I think I got some cabbage in, and kale. And I'm also planting asparagus seed because we have a huge asparagus bed. So it works with asparagus seed though too. I did it last year. So I just want to encourage you that even if you just have a tiny garden, it is so much fun to winter sow. So get out there and winter sow. It's totally worth it. And another thing you want to consider is, so some people say, well, why would you winter sow when you can just, when it's time, go out and direct sow in the garden? One, because typically winter sowing is a couple weeks ahead of what you do in the garden. But for me, the second reason is I can actually place the plants where I want them. So like let's take the asparagus. The asparagus will grow, and I actually keep them 1 year in my greenhouse. But even if you don't do that, you can go put them in your bed and you know exactly where it is. And it's important to know where you've planted your asparagus. If you just do seeds, you're gonna have to go out and weed and mark and all of that. And I just, there's some things I don't wanna do that with. Or there's plant considerations, like when I do cabbage, I typically have better luck with starting my cabbage indoors, or actually last year, all of our cabbage was from winter sowing. And so I just take those plants and then I can space them properly. I don't waste as much seed. And I just feel like when I go ahead and I seed right into the garden, I end up wasting a lot of seed. And it seems like I don't have as good of luck as if I start it first, because I can actually like gauge really well like all of its conditions, and then it pops up and it's a very beautiful thing. So I just want to really encourage you to get out there and start winter sowing, and leave us any comments below on the luck that you've had, any suggestions that you have, like my big suggestion with the paint marker. I think it works. But any suggestions that you have, please put it below. We read them, other people read them, and this is just a sweet little community that we love to be a part of. And so we love your sharing, and we thank you so much for watching, and we would love to hear from you. So remember, if we can winter sow, anybody can. Thanks. Bye.